In this video, we are going to learn about Maya cameras, how to use them, and how to navigate through multiple cameras efficiently. By default, Maya uses the perspective view, which is a 3D view of your object. And if you hit spacebar, you can also navigate through the orthographic views. If you hover over an orthographic view, hit spacebar, and then left mouse click on the Maya at the center, you can get some more views that you add. So if I hover over this and let's choose the left view from the marking menu, Maya will add a new left camera, a new orthographic view that appears in your outliner. And I usually take this over to the top using my middle mouse key and dragging so that all my cameras are at the top of my scene. You can see that you have other cameras here. These are our default perspective, top, front, and side. And any new cameras that you add will appear in your outliner as you add them. If you want to create a brand new 3D camera, you can go to any view. I'm going to go to the perspective and spacebar, left mouse click, and you'll see an option called New Camera. And that'll create a new camera called Perspective 1. And the more cameras you add, the more numbers it's going to add at the end of perspective. But this new camera can now be used, let's say, for your render. So you can set up a gate mask and you can set up a camera angle on this for your render. And you can use your perspective view to set up your lights and other things that you need for your render. So once you create a new camera, it automatically takes you to the camera perspective 1. And often you might want to navigate between cameras. You can just go to spacebar, left mouse click, and go to perspective view. That'll take you to the default perspective. But if you want to navigate to a camera that is not your default perspective, you can go up to Panels, Perspective, and you can choose a camera from in here. And if you have more than 2 cameras, now I've created Perspective 2, you can navigate to whichever camera you want to go to. And whenever you're setting things up, whenever you're moving around, just make sure to check which camera you're on so that you can be aware of what you're changing within that camera. So if I go back to Perspective 1, let's say this is my render camera, and I want to create multiple renders in this camera. You can go up to View and Bookmarks to be able to add bookmarks to this camera. And that's basically going to save whatever view you create over here. So let's go to Bookmarks and edit Bookmarks. And we can save this view. Let's say this is our main render. So we go to New Bookmark and we can type in main render. And we can click on Enter and close this out. So this is our main render. And let's say we want a different angle of the camera facing this way. And we set that up. And now we can save this out as well. So we can go to View, Bookmarks, and Edit Bookmarks. We can add a new bookmark and name this Side Render. And click on Enter to save that. And once you do that, let's say now you want to go back to your previous render. You can go to View, Bookmarks, and Main Render. So this easily allows you to navigate between different views, and you can save as many views as you need to get your renders out. Another very useful thing is setting the camera to be able to respond to undos. So if you move your camera and you're like, oh, maybe I want to go back to the previous view that I had, you cannot do that because undo does not work on the cameras in Maya. So if I go to View, Camera Settings, and just tick this option called Undoable Movement, I will now be able to undo my camera movement. So I can make a movement and then undo that movement. And this is very useful as you get further into 3D and wanting to navigate the cameras. because this is never on by default in any version of Maya. So I turn it on if I am creating specific camera views, and it is very useful. Now that we can create multiple cameras, we can create bookmarks. Let's take a look at some camera settings that will be useful for environments. Let's go to perspective 1. And when you go to perspective 1 and you go to the attribute editor, you can see all your camera properties. So the Maya cameras act as real-life cameras. So they have a focal length, they have an aperture, and they also have aspect ratios, and they have a bunch of other settings that you can use. If you are familiar with cameras, you can play around with these settings. They are very similar to real-life camera settings. The one that I'm going to talk about right now is the near clip plane and the far clip plane. These two settings exist to optimize the Maya workspace. So the near clip plane, basically what it does is that if you zoom in, sometimes you might notice that after a certain point, your object starts clipping. You can basically see through the object, and you can't really see what you want to see when you zoom in. Let's go back to perspective 1 and let's check our options. So by default, the near clip plane is set to 0.1, which is pretty good. And let's see what happens if we change that to 10. You see that when you zoom in closer now, the model kind of breaks. So basically that the model is clipping through and you're not able to see it. And if you zoom in too much, you cannot see anything. So 0.1 is usually a good number for the near clip plane. And sometimes if you really want to zoom in very close, you can change this to 0.01. And then you can zoom in further than you would be able to earlier. So we have near clip plane and we have our far clip plane. And for environments, this is especially important, especially an environment that is at real life scale. So the far clip plane basically clips out your object. The way that we saw for the near clip plane, it clips it out as you zoom out. And by default, this is set to a pretty high number, but let's set this to maybe 10. And you'll notice that the object completely disappears. Let's go a little higher, 100. So after a certain point of zooming out, the model is just going to clip away. You'll notice as I slowly zoom out, the model is disappearing and the bigger object at the back clips away very, very quickly when we are on 100. So the higher this number is, the easier it's going to be to zoom out, the more that you'll be able to see. And the lower it is, the quicker your objects will disappear. So this doesn't mean that your objects are gone. It just means Maya is optimizing its workspace, and after a certain point, your objects will be clipping out of existence. And you can fix this by just increasing this to a higher number. And if you want to zoom in really, really close, decreasing this to a lower number. And I add maybe 1 or 2 zeros when I'm working on environments so that I can zoom out a lot and see my whole environment without anything clipping. But if you do see any really weird black faces on your object when you zoom out, or you see them when you zoom in, that just means that you have to change your near clip plane or your far clip plane.